Ladies and gentlemen, pay attention. This is your boy, the coach from the WWE. I would like to welcome you to the very first wrestling podcast in the world to take you on a weekly deep dive into classic matches along with legends of the squared circle. Enjoy the discussion. Enjoy the back and forth. There's so much to get into. Ladies and gentlemen, this is The Payoff.
Welcome to an all-new episode of The Payoff. I'm Tom. That's Jeff. Jeff, how the hell are you doing?
But just a busy month of wrestling, you know. I'm feeling good today.
Every month from here on out is a busy month of wrestling.
Yep.
When will there not be a busy month of wrestling?
This one is especially got a busy couple of weeks at my show, that I went and saw. We had Full Gear. We got Survivor Series. We already know the 2022 pay-per-view schedule, and so just things happening and staying busy. And so, it's just December, a quiet month though, almost. We have like Ring of Honor, but there's always wrestling. You and I aren't going anywhere. We got episodes to cover. We got things happening. And so, but today, we got to get through Survivor Series first, though. We're not done with that yet.
No, we're not. And this was an interesting one. Why did you want to cover this?
This was one I remember just kind of looking at Survivor Series matches and kind of what we wanted to do here. This is kind of we've actually had our buddy Sean, the showstopper, say, hey, you guys haven't done like a match from the last 10 years or something like that. It's like, yeah, we know. And so this is kind of the sweet spot for us too. Kind of 90s, late 90s, especially there was just a lot of good stuff happening here. And so these Survivor Series, especially, I wanted to pick some good matches just that were kind of high rated. I didn't feel like going the low road. I wanted to go the high road here. And so this is peak WWE though in the 90s though. So I'm excited to talk about this one. How about you?
Yeah, me too. I think there's just a lot to talk about here. There's a lot happening, a lot to talk about. I'm interested in this match. I mean, this is one of the bigger feuds of the era. I know you think, Austin Rock and Austin McMahon, but keep in mind, these two wrestled a lot, and there were a lot of big moments. And one of the things that I think maybe gets lost in WWF folklore is, man, The Rock really, really elevated his game because of Mick Foley. And then Triple H, the same thing. And, Foley made a lot of people look really, really good. I mean, not that The Undertaker wasn't a legend already, but gosh, elevated The Undertaker. So again, just great stuff. I'm really excited to cover this one.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's get down to business. Let's get into the build.
Oh, it's time for the build.
All right, so like we said, Survivor Series 1998, St. Louis, Missouri, the Kiel Center, November 15th. Over 20,000 there, buy rate of over 400,000. Just to put that in perspective, I mean, AEW, I guess they're now well over 100,000, but, it's interesting. I'll tell you this, Jeff, I think a lot of people it's interesting. I like AEW. I like WWE. I don't prescribe to you have to pick one or you have to choose sides or, if you like one, you hate the other, blah, blah, blah. I'm just enjoying wrestling. I'm enjoying the current product of wrestling more now than I have in a long time. So I'm a happy camper. I don't pick sides. It's interesting though. And I'm curious what you think of this because I see everyone bashing AEW, they only got 150 or 200,000, pay-per-view buys. And WCW in 1998 was getting, 500,000 or whatever. And the other thing people do that with is the TV ratings, right? AEW, It's only getting a third of the rating of WWE, right?
But those demographic talking points.
Well, and we're not even going to go down that road. But let me pose this a different way. These guys didn't exist a few years ago, and now they're doing a third or a half or more of what the multi-billion-dollar titan of the industry is doing.
Right.
So even if you say, oh, well, AEW's only doing a half or a third of WWE, they didn't exist a few years ago.
Right.
And they survived the pandemic. Did the XFL survive a pandemic? Like AEW kept producing shows. They got 200,000 buys or whatever they did for their last pay-per-view. They've signed all these guys. They're packing arenas. Like, I don't know why everyone has to shit on everything in this industry. AEW, what they're doing is unbelievable. And to be at half the size or a third of the size of the industry standard that's been around forever, go ahead and launch a soft drink, do half the sales of Coca-Cola and Pepsi. Ain't going to happen. So what AEW has done is incredible. So it's just interesting. So 400,000 buys. Didn't mean to get into a tangent, but I did want to say that. So this show is interesting, Jeff, because they have a tournament to determine the new champion. You'll get into all of that, but it just, I know they were
a lot of bad
something.
Matches. Yep.
Well, bad matches, short matches, bullshit finishes. So, it really just didn't work. So Mankind defeats Gilbert in the first round. Al Snow defeats Double J in the first round. 30-second match, then a 3-minute and 30-second match. Steve Austin defeats the Big Boss Man by DQ in 3 minutes. Steven Regal versus X-Pac ends in a double countout in 8 minutes. Ken Shamrock wins a 6-minute match against Goldust. The Rock defeats the Big Boss Man. So I guess Stone Cold lost that match. So The Rock defeats Big Boss Man in 3 seconds. Okay. The Undertaker defeats Kane. Mankind defeats Al Snow. 7-minute match and now a 4-minute match here. The Rock defeats Ken Shamrock in 8 minutes. Then we throw a Sable Women's Championship match in here where she's going to win the championship over Jacqueline in 3 minutes. Now we're back to our tournament semifinals. We have Mankind defeating Steve Austin in 10 minutes. Then we have The Rock defeating The Undertaker by DQ in 8 minutes. So now we're down to Mankind and The Rock. But hold on. First, we're going to have a triple threat tag match of the New Age Outlaws keeping their tag titles against D'Lo and Mark Henry and the Headbangers. Then we get the main event, The Rock and Mankind. What a cluster fuck this thing was.
Yeah, the whole tournament.
Am I wrong?
The tournament was rough. Yeah.
And it all sucked. I mean, these match ratings, dud, 0.5, 0.75, 1.5, dud, 0.5, 2.5, 1, 3, 0.75, 1, and then 3.5 for the main event. Clearly the best match on the show. But my God, this is like peak WWE too. I mean, the talent on the show is incredible, in terms of the roster. But my God, the booking of this thing was just horrendous.
Yeah, just crazy.
Now, what I'm curious about, I remember some of this, but a lot of it you're going to refresh our memory on. I want to know how we got to this tournament, and I want to know if the build sucked as bad as the card did.
So the build actually wasn't terrible, but there was not a ton of crisscrossing on this one. And so there were some big moments throughout this one, but it was just kind of weird. And so you had a Degeneration X in your house, December 1997. You actually had Stone Cold defeating The Rock. It was a quick match for the Intercontinental Championship. The next night, though, you had Austin being ordered by Mr. McMahon to defend the title in a rematch, but he actually forfeited it to The Rock instead. He actually handed him the belt. It was a whole thing. So The Rock, though, throughout most of this kind of 1997 into 1998 was feuding with Steve Austin, Stone Cold, and Ken Shamrock. The Rock actually beating Ken Shamrock to retain the Intercontinental title is actually a DQ finish at Royal Rumble that 1998. He actually made it to number 2 in the Royal Rumble then that same evening. and actually eliminated by Stone Cold that night too. And so The Rock continuing the feud with Ken Shamrock after this was actually March 29th. That's WrestleMania. This would have been 10-14, beating Ken Shamrock by DQ again in retaining title. Like a lot of DQ finishes at this point. So you had then The Rock. He actually debuting the new title belt at this point, the redesigned belt, coming out with that one. And then it was actually that night, the night after WrestleMania, overthrowing Farouk as the leader of the Nation of Domination. And where the two of them started a feud as well too, for the Intercontinental Championship. And so that led into the summer as well too. The Rock really just having the Intercontinental belt throughout most of the feud with Triple H as well too. There was that ladder match at SummerSlam, of course. And then him really at this point kind of turning babyface as well too, because taking on other members of the Nation of Domination, really breaking up the stable leading into this pay-per-view. And so The Rock kind of going solo at this point as the babyface on this. So still not, the level that we might know and things like that, but still a very big deal at this point. So entering this tournament though, at the time for the vacant championship. So Mankind on the flip side, he was coming off of, at this point, Survivor Series, 1998, we're at November. Of course, we had the largest match, of like arguably one of the most influential matches ever that June, which is the King of the Ring Hell in a Cell match between him and The Undertaker. And so you had him and Kane winning the tag team championships a little bit as well too here. He had him also kind of changing the persona. He went from Mankind, the kind of crazy psychotic person, to more of the kind of goofy character as well too. And so them losing Kane and Mankind after Kane turned on him, losing the belts at SummerSlam this year, the tag belts, excuse me. So then you have him starting to get, you have Mankind starting to get involved in the angles with Vince McMahon, trying to be his friend. And this will play into this match a little bit here and kind of what happens and things like this. But, him trying to get McMahon to like him, and kind of be friends with him. So him, of course, showing up. This was the October 5th episode of Raw while McMahon in the hospital. This is, of course, the just one of the all-time classic kind of, scenes, if you will, of wrestling, showing up at the hospital with Yerpel, as we all remember, the clown as well too. And, trying to, cheer him up. Of course, this was, I forget too, that this was the same segment as when Austin jumped him in the hospital as well too. Just great. And so, to kind of go back, kind of watch that one. It's just fun to see that whole thing play out. So have that. So you also have at this point too, the creation of Mr. Sacco. And so, of course, the behind the scenes story here is that Al Snow suggested it to him, became just a huge sensation overnight, using it with the mandible claw as well too. Just hugely popular. Absolutely. And so, and selling it on the shows as well too. So it was a big deal. And so McMahon, though, kind of using the relationship that Mankind was trying to build with him to really kind of get him to do what he wanted. And so a big part of that was also at this time, this is when the Hardcore Championship was created as well too. And so him making Mick Foley the first Hardcore Championship as well, or champion as well. And so we had that at this time as well. And so the date on that was November 2nd. So it was really like 2 weeks prior to this show where he becomes the Hardcore Championship. No match for that. He was just awarded the belt by McMahon. And so that was a big deal. And so at this point, like his kind of connection to Mick Foley, really, pushing him or Mick's, well, I'll get it. A lot of M's here. Mankind's connection to Vince McMahon, him being pushed to be the potential winner of this of the WWF Championship at Survivor Series. And really a lot of the lead up to this had been shown is that like Vince was working the tournament so that Mankind was going to win at the end of this year, but then you've got both guys kind of getting there and this is the finals. And so, like I said, a lot of crappy matches to get us to this one.
I mean, horrible.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm ready if you are, man.
But I wanted to talk about real quick.
What?
And I'm being serious here. I want to talk a little Manscaped.
Oh, of course. Yes.
Okay. But here is why. No bullshit. Okay. obviously, they're a sponsor of our show. We love their products. We actually use them every week, if not more often than that. So, we're not saying this to tell you this. We mean it. They make some really good shit. But here's what I wanted to tell you. Did you see the new stuff that they've rolled out?
I saw some of it on the website. I saw new products on a lot of things.
Yeah. So let me tell you 3 new things that I admittedly have not tried, and I have them in my cart right now, and I'm about to check out. That's why I'm sitting here laughing. So 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner. I still haven't really found a shampoo and conditioner I love. Now, in general, I'm not a big shampoo and conditioner 2-in-1 guy, but I'm going to give this thing a shot, and I'll report back in a few weeks and let you know what I think. But it's got like that tea tree oil in it, so I've got some pretty high expectations for that. So
I'm a big fan of the scents.
Okay, so me too. I love that. I love the tingle. So I ordered that. It's only $12.99, which actually is not bad for shampoo, conditioner. Like, you get good stuff. Okay. The crop cleanser, which is to clean your balls, all right, in the shower. And then the body wash, which, would go well with the shampoo and conditioner. So I am purchasing all 3 right now using Payoff 20 to get 20% off and free shipping. I will report back on how they are, but they all look awesome. And these are all brand new. So, obviously you got to start with the Weed Whacker, get the 4.0. That's the best trimmer on the market. But all this other stuff on the site's really, really good. But these 3 are new. We have not tried them yet, but we're going to. And if you don't have a shampoo you love, don't have a body wash you love, don't currently wash your balls with something special, try these 3 things. All 3 with the discount code Payoff20, you get money off, you get free shipping. So my total payment is $29 for all 3 of these, which is really, really good.
Totally worth it. Yeah. And this is one where 'tis the season, we will start, you got to start thinking about Christmas now. And so get those gifts, things like that. Time's running down here. So now's the time to do it.
Agreed. All right, dude, you ready to get into this?
Let's get into it.
Okay. So here's the deal. We are at the 2-hour and 19-minute mark of Survivor Series 1998. 2-hour, 19-minute mark. We got a little backstage thing, and then they cut to the action. Jeff, are you ready?
I am ready.
All right. It's time for the payoff.
Oh, it's time for the payoff.
All right, here we are. We're backstage. I guess McMahon, he's got the boss man. He's working on him, and Shane is the ref. So they're up to no good, Jeff.
Never been one to hide my love of the big boss man. Definitely more of the OG boss man, if you will, though.
Yeah.
In the blue versus the, I say the really, you would almost call it like the Shield 1.0 body armor. And got that as well too. So kind of weird, but all right. Yeah, both guys getting in the ring here, like you said. Mankind looking good in the bow tie.
So since Shane was just on screen, I was actually just wondering this the other day, like what's the future of Shane McMahon? I mean, obviously, he wrestles again at some point.
It's hard to say. Is he going to come back and get a WrestleMania moment? He's been kind of quiet. We haven't seen him in obviously a long while. And so kind of curious to see what happens there. But yeah, really, it would have been what was there? Or no, he had the steel cage match
at WrestleMania against Braun Strowman
and and Braun Strowman beating him there. And that would have been it. Yeah. Weird.
The feud that we'll probably never get, but I actually think could have been really, really good if they did it the right way, was Shane and Triple H.
Yeah. Had they done,
I think they could have done a hell of a feud.
At this point, we don't want that, but yeah. So,
I mean, I don't know. If you had a street fight or something, you might be able to get it in the ring. Of course, is Triple H ever going to wrestle again?
I would do while we just had it, I would, maybe next year we get, Team Shane, Team Triple H, we do, some kind of McMahon battle there. I'd be okay with that. And so, and kind of working towards something like that, that would be okay. So slow start to this match here too.
I'm actually surprised. Like on paper, the show looked like it was horrible. The Observer, 46% thumbs up, 34% thumbs down, 18% thumbs in the middle. So like mixed reviews for this match, for this show, but I don't know. I don't know how more people didn't think it sucked. I mean, I remember watching it live. Of course, I don't remember if I liked it or not. I don't know. I'm just surprised that the show didn't get worse reviews than that, to be honest.
Yeah, we've got the write-ups that we'll talk about a little bit after this one, but yeah, so just kind of weird. I do want to take a second though. We talked Manscaped and we made sure to cover that a little bit though. I do want to shout out Hacksaw Jim Duggan though as well too. Of course, doing some of the voiceover work for the show here, and him there's just sad, being diagnosed with prostate cancer, having surgery. He was in the hospital as well too, and so big shout out to Hacksaw from the payoff here, because he's one. You and I both big fans, of course, but want to make sure that he's doing okay and all that stuff. So just a quick shout out to him. So yeah,
and at the time of recording, he's improving. It sounds like, so let's just keep in our prayers.
That's all we can do. Yeah, absolutely. So. Okay, so this is one too. I sent you the picture of this, which is the more iconic. And you can even potentially add, you smell what the Rock's cooking. But the meme I sent you, or the picture I sent you, is which is more iconic, the T-shirt of Austin 316 or the T-shirt of the black and white NWO?
That's a great question, and
it really is. Yeah, go. Your thoughts? Is there one that you think is bigger than that? What do you got here?
I mean, those are the two. If you're talking biggest T-shirts of all time, I think, I could be wrong, but I think the only other one you could throw in that category is just the Hulkamania yellow T-shirt with red.
Yeah.
And that might be the only other one. I'd say if you put a fourth one up there, it's just the classic Macho Man with the sunglasses. But yeah, I mean, it's NWO and Austin 316 are the two T-shirts. So for me, I lean towards Austin 316 being a bit more iconic, a bit better. But keep in mind, I'm a WWF mark. So, not that I didn't watch both shows, but I was team WWF. So that's kind of what I think. What about you?
Well, for starters, we got Shane and Vince now at ringside, and so we're dealing with that, getting flipped off.
Well, keep in mind, this is the year after Survivor Series 97, so they're playing.
We'll talk about that. Yep, we'll get there.
And are they going to screw someone? And if so, who are they going to screw?
For me, I think in regards to, I'm on the flip side on this one. I think it's the NWO shirt, because I think it has just survived the test of time more. You still see a lot more people in NWO shirts, not only just like wrestling, but like I saw Pat McAfee at a Pacers game and he had a NWO shirt on, a few years ago, but like, that's just kind of, how it is sometimes. And so, which I, kind of funny looking back at, but now I think in its heyday, yes, Austin 316 was definitely like more iconic, more, you knew what that was, things like that. I think less so nowadays, but in regards to like today, I'd still wear an NWO. I mean, I'd still wear both shirts, but you could still get, I think you get more mileage out of your NWO shirt. I'm with, I think the Hogan white and red, super important. And then,
yellow and red.
Yellow and red. Sorry. And then, I don't know what else. I don't know what else would be close, but nothing that like sticks out to me big. If you smell what the Rock is cooking, but I don't know if you put that on a shirt, no shirt. I don't remember anything that really stands out that way. So, yeah.
So they're brawling. So he's, just tossed Mankind outside the guardrail.
Under the wood. Yeah.
God, I forgot how long they've had those guardrails for. Even as early as 98 with that black. I forget how long that's been.
It's still busting them open. Yep. Whoa.
So the Rock.
There's a botched trash can spot. There he goes. He got him.
So they're battling out in the crowd. This is great, man. I wish we had more of this now.
Flipping it. Just Mick taking the spots that you would expect. Yeah. So you got Vince and Shane, of course, at this point, on Mick's side, Mankind's side, like trying, reacting to him getting beat up by The Rock.
So, I had an interesting thought. So obviously going into this match, The Rock is a face.
Mm-hmm.
The Rock would become a heel. And I wonder if they had the two brands back in like 97, 98, how Rock's career would have been different. Like the reason that The Rock was a heel, not initially, but like the reason The Rock stayed a heel as much as he did during his career was because Austin was the good guy.
Mm-hmm.
So
Makes
it's
sense.
like,
Yep.
If you had Raw and SmackDown back then, clearly one would be the top guy on Raw, one would be the top guy on SmackDown, both would be champions.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just interesting, again, when you have split brands, I mean, you could play this game with like the current roster too, but it's like, how much different would the roster be if there was one roster versus two? Because there's definitely guys over time that have become baby faces instead of heels, or heels instead of baby faces, because they had two brands. Like you could even argue that Roman Reigns stayed a baby face way longer than he should have, because they needed him as a baby face on one of the two brands. Same with Cena, right? If you only had one roster, could you have turned Cena heel? Yeah, but if you need him to be the headliner on one of your shows and one of your tours, back when they used to tour a ton, it's different. So think about that. Again, from 99 or whenever SmackDown got created to now, so the past 20 years basically, how many times, instead of doing what would have been best, did they have to do what was best for their stupid little SmackDown or Raw rosters?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting to think about who would be the counter to, the heel face on them. So it's oh boy, Rock, big chair shots. So the steps fell on Mankind on the outside, and The Rock just taking it hard to him with chair shots. Like, hitting the steps. And so here comes the true chair shots. Yep. Oh, there you go. Right to the head.
Yeah, they're neither's a heel at this point. They're both kind of just beating the shit out of each other.
Right.
So I want to bring something up, Jeff. And I'm going to go through this pay-per-view by pay-per-view here, but I'll say something that's a little, I won't say controversial, but I've never really heard it said before, but I think that I'm going to back it up with some facts. Stone Cold Steve Austin's 1998 title reign, like he beat Shawn Michaels, right, was not that great.
Why would you say that?
Well, the reason I'd say that is because he didn't have a lot of guys to work with, and it wasn't as great as it could have been. So WrestleMania 14, Austin, Shawn Michaels. It was a good enough match. The Tyson thing was great, but that main event actually should have been Steve Austin versus Bret Hart. And I say that because the rematch from 13, the rematch from Survivor Series 96, like getting those guys in the ring and having Steve Austin finally conquer Bret Hart, who was a super, super heel, would have been incredible. So
go ahead.
Nope, go ahead. Well, I was going to say, so
go ahead.
You didn't get the best Austin win you could have had. Him and Shawn was just not that great. And that's coming from the biggest Shawn Michaels mark of all time. But it just wasn't a great feud. And you knew Shawn was kind of on his way out. But Bret as a heel versus Austin would have been absolutely out of this world unbelievable. Okay.
And I think I had put that, actually. I remember when we did our lists of like matches we wish we had gotten, that rematch was my number one.
Okay. So that's the WrestleMania that, again, wasn't great, could have been better. Okay. So now there is no rematch to that because Shawn's gone. Okay. So typically what happens to pay-per-view after WrestleMania? Oh, well, you get a street fight between the two or whatever. So we didn't get that. We got Dude Love and Steve Austin because they needed a heel for him to work with. So they make Dude Love a heel and they have him against Austin. And it didn't even end clean. It was ended in a DQ. All right. So then, and Vince McMahon isn't going to wrestle every, he wasn't wrestling at the time, but he wasn't going to wrestle every time. So then what do you have? You have a rematch with Steve Austin and Dude Love. Great match, Falls Count Anywhere. But again, you're not getting these great Steve Austin matches or feuds. You've gotten Shawn Michaels instead of Bret Hart, and then you've got Dude Love twice. Then what do you have? Well, you have Steve Austin and The Undertaker defeating Kane and Mankind. So you have a tag match just kind of thrown together. Ugh, not that great. Okay. Now, what do you have? I'm going to tell you what you have. You have a train wreck. Okay. You have Kane and The Undertaker defeating Steve Austin, where they, did their bullshit finish and Steve Austin's fired and blah, blah, blah. Not that great. All right. Then the following pay-per-view was when Kane and The Undertaker double pinned each other and Steve Austin was the referee.
Leading to the belt presentation and the Zamboni. Yes.
Okay. And then you get the Survivor Series. So again, Steve Austin, biggest star arguably in the history of the business, when he's at his absolute peak, right? Like absolutely incredible stuff. Don't get me wrong. But dude, it was not a good title reign. Like, you think of the best. Oh, and there was this, the Undertaker Steve Austin match, the Highway to Hell match, which again, it was kind of not a great match and the feud didn't really make a ton of sense. And again, so I just say all that to say that it wasn't the greatest series of matches, in 98 when he became champion. It wasn't like he had a great feud with Shawn Michaels where they got 2 or 3 good matches out of it. The Dude Love stuff, he didn't work Rock at all that year because they were both baby faces. Triple H wasn't at that level yet. The Taker stuff fell flat. You see what I'm saying?
Well, do you think it was a situation?
Hold on, so you got Foley, second rope, outside, elbow drop through the table, but he missed the Rock.
Missed it. Yep. Well, do you think it was a situation of they kind of booked themselves into a corner? Is it almost like this belt swap that they had with Becky and Charlotte and all the shit that's happened from that? Like they were both baby faces, so you couldn't get a Rock Austin. Like, do you just do it anyways? Like, what's the solution?
Yeah, I do think you do it anyways. I really do. But that was okay. They were saving it for WrestleMania 15. I'm okay with that. The problem, Jeff, is that, everyone remembers the Attitude Era being like the greatest thing ever and everything was perfect and it was way better than anything they do now, blah, blah, blah. But the reality is this roster, who are you going to have Steve Austin work with? I mean, look at this particular show. Okay. So on this show, you had, I
got the Rock setting him up for the elbow. Yep.
Okay. So People's Elbow coming. Everybody's standing. Hits it. Is this it? No, only a 2 count.
2 count. And you got Shane and Vince standing where they were for the year previous. Go ahead. Yeah.
But again, this is my reminder that, hey, weekly reminder that the Attitude Era was not perfect. And so, you say, oh, well, Steve Austin, he had some really blah feuds his year as champion. Like, to me, I would have rathered him be a defending champion, have great feuds, keep winning, and hold the title for a long time. But everything was just a shotgun approach in this time frame. We changed titles. We stripped titles. We did tournaments. A lot of the booking here was not great.
Well,
Raw was fun to watch. Yeah. So to me, it's like, why wouldn't you just have Austin having great main events for an entire year and defending his champion and just being a badass? You didn't need to do all this gimmicky bullshit. But it's like, who on this roster was he supposed to work with? Boss Man, Al Snow. You know, he worked with Mankind, Gangrel, Blackman, Val Venus, Job Squad, Too Much, The Hardys, Legion of Doom, Regal, X-Pac, Shamrock, Goldust, you know, Taker
Everybody.
Kane.
Yep.
I mean, there's really not that many guys on this roster.
And I'm sure, like, it was really, just how they booked themselves, like were there people, but yeah, a lot of times, like, he couldn't fight everybody either. And so you got to pick and choose kind of where you're getting. So he's got the mandible claw locked in too here. He's got Mr. Sacco on and about to get reversed into a rock bottom though. Yep.
Rock bottom, both men out. So to summarize,
yes,
Steve Austin's championship run in 98 was actually not that great. The main events of these pay-per-views kind of sucked, and there weren't a ton of guys to work with because the Attitude Era roster in 98 really wasn't that great. That's my hot take for today.
That's a good hot take though. Yeah. And it just kind of, and this, even at this point, like, so
The Rock has a sharpshooter on.
Right next to the ropes though.
Whoa.
Oh, hello. Real quick. That was very quickly. Vince calling for the bell. Shane with his referee shirt on, raising the hand of The Rock. Vince now coming into the ring with the belt.
I got my sound on.
Yep.
The Rock acting surprised. Now he just hugged.
Oh boy, hugs Vince, and there's the turn. Yep.
People are shocked. Vince is going to grab the mic.
Mankind confused in the corner.
Yeah. All right, let's get into the aftermath.
Oh, it's time for the aftermath.
All right, so we still have this on screen. What did you think?
It actually wasn't a bad match. It was actually more physical than I thought it would be. So much of it, though, is the telling of the story, though, here of, kind of what they're building. And really, it's we'll talk about it. It's the corporation. This is what we get into. And so and The Rock being a part of that. And so, overall, like the match itself was actually better than I realized. And so much of this is, playing into the storyline. How about you?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, you're rehashing Montreal.
Yeah.
The Rock was super over as a baby face, and then you just turn him heel. I mean, don't get me wrong. The guy can play a great heel. Okay. But I don't know. I just, again, the booking during this era was not as great as we remember it and romanticize about it.
Well, and to have it at this, so what do we got? Like you said, he had him in the sharpshooter. The year before it was the screw job. They were kind of playing off of that a little bit, for better or worse. Like, that's just that, it's what they do. It's just how it goes. But like The Rock turning heel at this point, though, and being a part of now the corporation. And so, kind of, like you said, just really interesting how it played out. But, and like, I hesitate because I think, like at the time, was it the right thing to do with the Survivor Series stuff? Just so fresh. Like we talk about it now and it's years and years and years ago, but at the time, like this was still pretty sour for people. And so, but the next pay-per-view is actually Rock Bottom in Your House. He had a rematch with Mankind at this point too. And so you again, Mankind appearing to win and then The Rock passing out, but Vince, since he didn't tap out, The Rock didn't tap out, he retained the title. And so these guys, though, they feuded a lot. You had January Raw, you had Royal Rumble, it was the I Quit match, where he took just a dozen chair shots at that point. End of January was Sunday Night Heat. They had the empty arena match, which is actually the Super Bowl as well too. And so, having that as well. And so he actually winning, the Mankind winning that one. I was actually, remember he pinning The Rock with the forklift to win the title on that one. And so It was halftime heat at that point too, which every year we'd love to see halftime heat. But anyways, so and so again, facing off St. Valentine's Day Massacre. This was the last man standing match, which was a draw. So Mankind retaining the belt on that one. And so you actually had it was just an episode of Raw. The Rock actually winning the championship. It was a ladder match when the Big Show interfered to help the Rock kind of win. And then you said leading up into the Rock, that was February Raw, and then leading into the Rock and Stone Cold at WrestleMania 15. So both guys, like their stories intertwined a lot, kind of leading through up and through this and into this, just kind of how it was. So yeah, so
everything was just so hot shotted, man.
And they exchanged the belts. They had a lot of matches, and there was a lot of back and forth on this stuff. So yeah, so. Okay, so 1998, Mankind was 26. The Rock was 11 on a PWI. Wade, Pro W Torch on there, PW Pro W. Yeah, it works. PW Torch, Wade saying McMahon had been portraying himself as Mankind's best friend leading in the Survivor Series. All along, he was plotting to screw him in the main event, so his real chosen one, The Rock, would end up as the corporate champion. By drawing some parallels between this year's storyline Screwjob and last year's real Screwjob, McMahon was able to take some steam out of Bret Hart's documentary, making it seem as if it was part of an ongoing elaborate story. And so here's kind of the same way that you were just saying. One of the beat writers, WWF's pay-per-views of late have been rather disappointing. Too much McMahon, too many angles, too many cute swerves, and too much of everything except the wrestling. Tournaments have featured matches that were too short, both on time and on action. Most matches end thanks to outside circumstances rather than someone actually winning on their own. Along the way, they pad the card with a few buys, and we get even less than we pay for. If there was any doubt about the quality of the show, just go back and watch the crowd reaction to the end of the main event. They either outright hated it or just did not care. Nobody in the arena seemed happy or satisfied or pleased. And keep in mind that Rocky has been one of the very over wrestler. Even McMahon seemed to anticipate that his 3 hours of public masturbation would not be well received, since he had the obligatory finish of Austin charging the ring, which we're now watching if you still have it on. Austin charging the ring and stunning everyone in sight to send the fans home with a semblance of a smile on their face. Not a good night, not a good match, not worth discussing, but I am still out $30. Pretty harsh on that one, but okay. Meltzer on this one. My reaction watching the show as it was going on was kind of boring and disappointing, particularly from since the bracketing that appeared to be head and shoulders above all recent pay-per-views. To me, a bad sign is that the show is dragging and you're looking at the clock, figuring out how many minutes are left before it's going to end. The lack of talent depth was noticeable, and problems with the length of the show amplified by the lack of heat for all but the trademark spots, which everyone waits to pop for. But it was still something largely boring as it was going on, with far too much emphasis put on Vince McMahon, and don't think the wrestlers aren't noticing any differently than the WCW crew in the early days of Eric Bischoff on TV. He gave this one 3.5. Wade, actually, I don't think I found a star on this one, so I don't have a rating from him specifically. So 3.5, though, like we said at the top of the show, is kind of what this one's getting, and kind of going from there. So yeah, as Austin kind of marches off into the sunset of this pay-per-view. So yeah, 3.5 is really all we have. Kind of some interesting write-ups, kind of echoing a little bit of what you just said too, as well. What do you got for a score on this one?
Dude, I'm giving this one a 5. I mean, of all their matches, this was about as bad of one as they had. I mean, you look at the I Quit and the double count or the double knockout one and the Raw one where Foley wins the title. I mean, you look at everything these guys did, that's like the worst match they had. So the actual bell to bell, the finish, do we need to redo the screw job? I just didn't think it was that well done. I wasn't offended that they used it. The whole thing just didn't work to me. I didn't like the tournament. I didn't like the pay-per-view, didn't like the match. I felt like everything they did during this was hot-shotted. And again, fantasy booking, I'm booking Steve Austin to be champion for 2 fucking years. Okay. Mm-hmm. Like to me, it's like every month he should just, it's like Hogan. Hogan just kept feeding him monsters, and he kept winning. And eventually he lost, but like, keep feeding Steve Austin guys. Hey, Dude Love, all right, fine. Give him that. Give him Triple H. Give him Ken Shamrock. Give him some faces. It doesn't have to all be heels. Keep having Vince McMahon feed him guys. Bring some guys back from the past that, could you have built the Big Boss Man to where you got one main event at a pay-per-view with him and Austin? Yeah, I actually believe you could have. Like, I think you could have kept feeding people, and people weren't. They would have paid $30 to see Steve Austin kick someone's ass and drink some beers, just like they paid $30 to watch Hogan Hulk up, drop a leg. So I think they overthought this era. It's like, just keep feeding him guys and have him beat The Undertaker, have him beat Kane, have him beat Mankind, have him beat the Big Boss Man, have him beat Triple H, have him beat Ken Shamrock. Just keep going, and you can get a year to 2 years out of it, and hold back The Rock for that big one. And even if like The Rock turns heel on Austin, wins the Rumble, and then that's your Mania main event, and Steve Austin retains. So I know it's 2020 hindsight. There's just a lot of stuff here during this era I didn't like. So payoff score, it's a 5. What about you?
I'm going to give it a 6, actually. I feel like some of these, I found myself in a trend recently with some of these, like, almost like I say middle of the payoff, like or middle of the story payoff, if you will. I'm not enjoying it. Like, I want to get to the payoff, which is interesting because, I want some story. I kind of want to know what's going on at the same time. And maybe it's just my personality. Like, I don't want, I've said the opposite too on the show. Like, I like some long builds but at the same time, like, some of this era, and maybe this is what it needed, is maybe it did need some more concise stuff, because I feel like a lot of these episodes that we've been doing, like, we kind of stop at a certain point talking about the aftermath because we have more matches to talk about. And so, and we don't want to jump too far ahead on some of these things. And so, and kind of end time to tell the story. And so, I only reason I give it a 6 over 5, because I thought the in-ring work was actually a little bit better than I expected. And so I gave it a little mark higher on that point. And so, I have that, but yeah, I'm with you though. Like I said, just a weird timing, like weird, booking themselves into a corner on a lot of this. Like, that's kind of what they did. And, now you get the face heel swap after this, and, you got new enemies, but not a whole lot still changed though. And then, Austin still being in the picture, just coming out and stunning everybody doesn't help either. It doesn't build anybody else. It does kind of not demean, but take away from what the other guys just did. So yeah. So I'm with you. Interesting points from Payoff Tom today.
Thank you.
I know. So it gives everybody something to think about, which is always nice. So
yeah, I've been a wealth of knowledge lately. By the way, if you don't follow me on Twitter at Payoff Tom, I'm not like incessantly tweeting, but when I do, I think there's some pretty intelligent wrestling thoughts. So follow me, follow Jeff at Payoff Jeff, and then we're at Payoff Pod.
Of course, social media. You know where to find us. All right, Tom, send them home happy.
All right. Well, not a great episode. I'm looking, Jeff, far more favorably at next week's episode, and
absolutely, I think you are too. We can tell them it's another Steve Austin match, which we don't always try and double dip. Sometimes we are being involved at the end of this one, but we're gonna go back to 1996 and Brett and Stone Cold, Steve Austin, and so that should be a heck of a lot better. Yep.
All right, we'll see you next week on an all new episode of The Payoff.